A ceasefire barely breathing. A Gaza technocrat pro-Hamas without being a Hamas man chosen in Cairo, but only if Washington nods. Bibi vows Israel will control our own security. Jordan refuses to send troops. Hamas refuses to disarm. If every actor says no, who governs Gaza at all? A civil society leader from Gaza will head the territory's new governing board, according to Israel's public broadcaster Kan News, which reported that Hamas and the Palestinian Authority have both approved Amjad Shawa for the position. The choice represents something of a compromise in a situation where compromise has been desperately hard to find. Shawa's name emerged from a meeting last week in Cairo between Hamas, the Palestinian Authority, and Egyptian intelligence. But there's a catch. His official appointment still depends on approval from the United States, which remains deeply involved in shaping Gaza's future. Palestinian sources told Kan that Shawa occupies an unusual middle ground.
He's pro-Hamas without being a Hamas man.
The composition of the new technocratic board reflects the current power dynamics. Hamas selected half of the potential members, while the Palestinian Authority chose the other half. But even here, the process wasn't straightforward. According to Khan, Egypt presented the completed list to Hamas directly, apparently trying to appease the organization during negotiations. So, who exactly is Amjad Shawa? Born in Gaza in 1971, he's spent decades working in civil society and human rights advocacy. He currently serves as Deputy Commissioner General of the Independent Commission for Human Rights and as General Director of the Palestinian NGOs network in Gaza. According to reports, Shawa has built extensive connections with international humanitarian organizations, making him what observers call a consensus candidate for this transitional phase. What makes Shawa acceptable to Hamas is revealing in itself. Kan News notes that he's maintained a carefully neutral stance toward the movement over the years, never publicly challenging or criticizing it. Khalil al-Hayya, a top Hamas official and head of the group's negotiation team, confirmed the broader arrangement in an interview with Al Jazeera. He said,
Hamas had agreed with Fatah and other Palestinian factions in principle to establish a technocratic committee to manage Gaza.
Al-Hayya stressed that the committee would be temporary and should eventually lead to Palestinian elections and a national unity government, though he couldn't estimate when such a committee might actually be established. But Al-Hayya made one thing absolutely clear.
Hamas would not give up its weapons except with the establishment of a Palestinian state.
This creates an obvious problem for the international community, which brings us to the question of foreign forces. That framing helps explain why the question of who will provide security in Gaza has become so contentious. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made clear on October 26th that Israel will decide which foreign forces it finds acceptable as part of any international presence in Gaza. Speaking to his cabinet, Netanyahu drew a line that contradicts some of the assumptions behind President Trump's 20-point peace plan.
We control our own security, and we have made clear that in regard to international forces, Israel will determine which forces are unacceptable to us. And that is how we act and will continue to act. This is, of course, accepted by the United States as well, as its most senior representatives made clear in recent days. Israel is an independent state. We will defend ourselves by ourselves, and we will continue to control our fate.
The Trump administration has been speaking to Indonesia, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, and Azerbaijan about contributing to a multinational force in Gaza. The administration has ruled out sending US soldiers into the territory, but it remains deeply unclear whether any of these countries will actually commit troops, particularly given Hamas's refusal to disarm. Last week, Netanyahu hinted he would oppose any role for Turkish security forces in Gaza. But Netanyahu isn't the only leader drawing red lines. Jordan's King Abdullah told BBC Panorama in an interview broadcast that no country would be willing to deploy forces in Gaza for peace enforcement as outlined in Trump's plan.
What is the mandate of security forces inside of Gaza? And we hope that it is peacekeeping, because if it's peace enforcing, nobody will want to touch that.
King Abdullah went further, stating explicitly that Jordan would not send its own forces into Gaza. Given that more than half of Jordan's population is of Palestinian descent and the kingdom has long hosted Palestinian refugees, the political sensitivity is obvious. Jordan's role, the king said, would be limited to providing training for Palestinian security forces.
Peacekeeping is that you're sitting there supporting the local police force, the Palestinians, which Jordan and Egypt are willing to train in large numbers, but that takes time. If we're running around Gaza on patrol with weapons, that's not a situation that any country would like to get involved in.
When asked whether Hamas could be trusted to comply with the peace plan's terms, King Abdullah expressed uncertainty, but pointed to Egypt and Qatar, which maintain close ties with Hamas as potential bridges. Then he offered a stark warning about what failure would mean.
If we don't solve this problem, if we don't find a future for Israelis and Palestinians, and a relationship between the Arab and Muslim world and Israel, we're doomed.
Meanwhile, the ceasefire itself remains fragile. Israel struck what it said was a member of the Islamic Jihad group in Gaza on Saturday, accusing the individual of planning to attack Israeli troops. Islamic Jihad denied planning an attack. Marco Rubio, speaking aboard President Trump's plane during a trip to Asia, said Washington does not view the strike as a ceasefire violation.
We don't view that as a violation of the ceasefire. They have the right if there's an imminent threat to Israel, and all the mediators agree with that.
He added that Israel has not surrendered its right to self-defense as part of the agreement brokered by Washington, Egypt, and Qatar. The ceasefire remains in force just over 2 years since the war began. But with Hamas refusing to disarm, Israel claiming veto power over any international force, Jordan refusing to send troops, and the definition of what violates the ceasefire still being negotiated in real time, the path from ceasefire to lasting peace looks extraordinarily narrow.